There's actually a process behind why worrying starts and why it becomes so difficult to stop. And I'm sure you're completely unaware of the chain of events happening in your mind when you do worry, when you keep going over the same problems and when you know it's not helping. So we're going to make this invisible process of worry more visible. And if you have anxiety, this is going to be very useful because you may think that worrying is uncontrollable. Let's just cover the basic again here. Worrying is a repetitive thinking process focused on possible future threats and uncertain outcomes. And it often begins when a threat-related meaning becomes available to your conscious thinking, and it's elaborated through repetitive, future-oriented thought. So this is a model I'm going to draw out for you, and it illustrates a common pathway in the development of worry. Okay, but these processes don't always occur in the sequence that I'm going to illustrate for you. The first thing that happens is that there is a trigger. Could be an external situation or an internal experience. This activates a threat-related knowledge and interpretations. So external triggers might be social evaluation, uncertainty, potential problems, or something you think is a threat around you. And internal triggers may be intrusive thoughts or mental imagery or even memories. A trigger doesn't automatically produce worry, right? The mind interprets the trigger based on existing knowledge and beliefs about what's dangerous to you, the uncertainty, or how vulnerable you are, and whether you're able to cope with it or not. So it's this interpretation, the meaning that you assign to the trigger, that determines whether worry is likely to develop in you. So first we start with trigger, and then we have the activation of threat-related knowledge. So what happens is your brain has stored knowledge and beliefs and memories, learned associations that are related to what danger is, to vulnerability, uncertainty, and your perceived ability to cope with these things. So you have the trigger, and then there's an activation of threat-related knowledge. So these threat representations can become active, and they influence how you understand the situation. They can become active automatically. Now, worry can start when a threat-related meaning enters your conscious awareness, because a lot of the time, this is unconscious. There's a lot of thinking and even behaving that's happening unconscious. You're reacting to your environment without even thinking about it. But when a threat-related meaning becomes conscious, that's when you can elaborate on that through this repetitive future-oriented thinking, right? So in the literature, this is referred to as like a threat proposition, or it used to be. So remember, in the previous video, we said a threat proposition is the basic unit of meaning or knowledge that in your mind that represents something about yourself or your world or a situation. So the threat proposition is not the emotion of anxiety itself, it's the meaning that your brain assigns to a situation, okay, or a thought or a body sensation that presents a possible threat. All right, so the next step here is the retrieval of related memories and meanings. These associations of memories and meanings, they become activated, and they contain information about previous and similar situations, outcomes, other interpretations, and beliefs about your ability to cope. Okay, so those are accessed. And the purpose of this activation is it provides additional information, so you or your brain can interpret the current situation. Okay, so your previous experiences, like if it's trauma or just any type of previous experience, is going to affect the interpretation or threat interpretation by making some outcomes feel more likely or more significant. So the next step here is the activation of negative emotion. Now, this doesn't always have to happen. You can worry without feeling any negative emotion, okay? But if you were to activate negative emotion, it would be somewhere around here. So you've got the threat-related knowledge, you've got the related memory propositions, they're active, and the associated negative effect now can also become active, right? So you start worrying about something and you immediately feel bad. That's where we're at. So because memories are not only stored information about previous experiences, they can also contain emotional qualities that are linked to those experiences, right? Like fear, like anxiety, like distress. So these emotional representations and their activation, it contributes to the experience of threat. And at the same time, the appraisal processes influence how significant this threat feels, right? Your mind is appraising the current situation and how significant it is. The next step in the worry process is to shift, your attention shifts. You're in your mind at this point. So that's what I mean when I say your attention shifts from being externally focused to gradually becoming more internally focused. Instead of focusing primarily at what is happening around you, you start to monitor your own thoughts, your emotions, and what these experiences mean. So this is what creates what we've been calling, or what's called, self-focused processing. There's a lot of videos I have about that. You're spending more of your attention monitoring your thoughts, your emotions, and now with the worrying, the possible outcomes. And you're paying less attention to what's happening in the external environment. So interestingly enough, does happen in this case or at this step is something called attentional narrowing. So it's when the threat, the perceived threat, and the related information, they get more of your attention, and other information, everything else starts to receive less. So your attention starts to narrow. And as it does that, it becomes more difficult to shift your attention away from what you're worrying about, or to access information that challenges the meaning that you're assigning to these things you're worrying about, right? Your attention moves inward, it starts to narrow, you're focusing in on. So this is a fascinating point here about this, right? You have reduced ability to access information that challenges what you're worrying about and what the interpretations and the analysis that you're coming up with, okay? So we want to shine a light on this now. When you worry, you'll have hopefully a greater understanding of what's happening, and you won't take that too seriously, and you'll be able to say, okay, I know what this is now. I can relax a little bit. I don't have to allow this to continue. I hope that's what you're going to get out of this. So I hope that you found this useful. And if you know anyone who has anxiety and who worries a lot, please share this video with them. And I tried to simplify this as much as possible, make it as conceptual as possible. If you have any comments or questions, please leave them. I read every comment. And if you found this useful, please like and subscribe. And I'll see you in the next video. Thanks.